All right, why don't we get going? Hello, everybody. Mark Yueill, the Director of Minnesota Thunder Academy. As many of you know, we are excited and happy to welcome Sean Holmes, who is the head coach for St. Cloud State University, a new Division II program a few years ago. Sean is entering his third season. Sean, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Couple administrative things off the bat, everyone. The first thing is towards the end, we will definitely take some questions from everyone. So if you have a question, please don't put it in the chat. Please put it in the Q&A section, and I'll go through and I'll pick up the questions and run them past Sean as we get in and through this a little bit. Also, at the end, as you log off, you'll have the ability to complete a survey. It's not long, but it helps us with how we do this going forward and what you would like to see. So if you don't mind taking a little bit to complete our survey, that would be fantastic. Again, as I mentioned, we've got head coach Sean Holmes from St. Cloud State University. Sean's got an impressive resume. He's been a Division I head coach at Drake, at University of Evansville. He's also coached at the NAIA level, which was at Baker University, which was the founding member of the NAIA program and the NIT basketball tournament. Correct, Sean? If I have it right. Sean has completed his U.S. Soccer A license. So he has and has been very involved in the Region 2 Olympic Development Program, which is where Minnesota sits for ODP. He played his college soccer in Canada at Carleton University. And he's also been a club coach, so in Des Moines, actually. So welcome, Sean. And I think I'm super excited because, as I told you earlier when we were talking about getting this going, you have a great perspective on multiple levels of where college soccer is. At the Division I level, obviously now the Division II, where you're the head coach at St. Cloud State. You also have run a NAIA program. Not to mention you have kids who played soccer, and so you've been through the recruiting process from a personal level also. So like I said, phenomenal background, and excited to have you here tonight. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I also coached high school for a couple of years in between there too.
Of course you did.
And assistant.
Well, there you go. It's covering all bases there. I really like that. Tell me a little bit. I think you're entering the third season. Is that correct, with St. Cloud State, where you're the initial coach there? Tell me how that's going and what exciting things are going on there.
Well, I got hired 3 years ago. I think almost today or yesterday, according to LinkedIn, and sure. Then COVID started 4 weeks later. So I spent my first 6 months as the head coach doing two things: putting together a schedule of all kinds of levels. We were going to play Division I, II, III, NAIA, JUCO, club, university club teams. And I did all my recruiting by phone and Zoom and video. Once the world shut down, it was difficult to get out and see players live. So that for whole first year, we did virtually. And then the season ended up being canceled. And then, so we really have played 2 seasons, 21 and 22. We play in the GLIAC. We're the only Division II school in the state of Minnesota. So we play schools from Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, sort of a Great Lakes. It's called the GLIAC, the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So yeah. we're the furthest west team in the conference.
So, and I didn't catch all of them. How far east does your conference go?
Saginaw, Michigan.
Saginaw. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we've had at least one Minnesota player there.
Kareem Darbaki's brother. Kareem Darbaki's brother played there.
One of the twins did. Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell everybody a little bit about the differences. I think a lot of people focus on Division I soccer and everything that encompasses that. Tell us a little bit about maybe the differences that we would find between Division II and Division I.
Well, a lot less than you think. Here's the biggest difference in soccer, and this is not applicable to football and basketball.
Sure.
In soccer, the difference between 1, 2, 3 and NAI is minuscule. Like there are good teams at every level because of the economics of college soccer. One of the things, remember I asked you a couple minutes ago if this was just a boys or a girls seminar. On the girls side, there are 330 plus Division I programs with up to 14 scholarships. On the men's side, there are 210, I think,
Yep.
with a maximum of 9.9 scholarships. So to the dollar, it's almost $2 for every dollar available from the women's to the men's side. So talent is scattered across the divisions much more evenly than it is in other sports or in women's soccer. The biggest difference, the difference between 1 and 2, we tend to play a more regional schedule. When I was at Drake, we went out to California every couple of years. We played across the whole Midwest. Because of the economics and the cost of stuff, people play a more regional schedule than they do at the Division I level. They're none of these kind of, you don't fly out to the ACC to play on a Wednesday night. It's in that respect, it's quite different. But the biggest difference between 1 and 2 and 3 is that we train and we play all year long. And perhaps, maybe the best recruiting advantage for us specifically is that we've been training for a month now. We'll play 5 games in the spring as Division I does, and we'll train all the way. I think we're till April 22nd this year. And in Division III, you don't have that available to you. Most schools are not training or have a very limited training schedule. So I know when my son went through it, and this is not to say you can't have a great experience at Division III. My son's was like, listen, I've played soccer year round for most of my life, whether it's club or high school or ODP, whatever it may be. Weirdly, we have time off in the summer in this country, but Division I and II, we're playing, 8 months a year, I guess. And I don't know what it is for the other divisions. Probably 80% of our team plays in the summer. In Minnesota, we're very fortunate to have a kind of a rich amateur men's league. We have USL2, we have NPSL, we have UPSL, we have MISA. Almost all of our guys play during the summer. And that's really, if you want to be a good player and you want to play, the game is global now. You can't play a couple months a year, in my opinion.
No, if that's your thing, it's who you're competing against. Also, people who are playing more often and more frequently, and so you have to do that. Maybe touch real quickly, if you don't mind, on the scholarship differences between Division I and Division II. Division III cannot offer athletic money. Obviously, they have financial aid and academic money, but touch a little bit so people understand the difference there on how athletic money works with Division II.
Yeah, so all scholarship, all financial aid is really divided into 3 parts, right? There's need-based, there's academic/merit, and then there's athletic aid. So Division III doesn't have athletic aid, but we've regularly recruited against Division III over the years, and there's money available at all levels. Ours is soccer specific. So our program has 3 scholarships. When I was at Drake, we had 8.5. The Ivy League has no athletic scholarships. Lots of programs are at 9.9, some are at 9. There's a wide range. And now with the NIL, there's more money available than ever. That's its own story that I learned about at school last week. And I will say this about athletic scholarships, and I know your boy played. I had an assistant who said this once. He goes, think of a scholarship as an upfront payment for what you're about to do rather than a reward for what you've already achieved. And this is really where a lot of the guys get in trouble. It's like, I worked so hard, I got this award, and this is payment for me having put in all these miles and put all this effort. But it's a little more cutthroat than that. If we're giving money, there's performances tied into it, right? And so when you want money, and this makes it a little more of a business arrangement in Division I and Division II. It's like, listen, you're here, we gave you a lot of money, your family's benefiting from this opportunity. You got to crank it up. You don't show up to practice when you want to. When you're in the weight room, when you're doing things to change your body and committing to the sport, the expectations are much, much higher.
Yeah.
And that's difficult for some people to wrap their head around, I think.
Yeah, it was Jackson's college coach when Jackson committed. The first thing that Jorge Salcedo at UCLA told him was, just so you understand, my job is to now recruit somebody to replace you as soon as possible. So you have to work hard. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Do you at St. Cloud State do you guys have academic study tables? Do you proctor tests on the road, kind of like sometimes they do at Division I schools? How do you guys monitor?
Well, there's my
And let me rephrase this question. Do you monitor it similarly like anyone else at Division I, II, or III? How does that work?
we do, but I have a pre-COVID and a post-COVID answer to that.
Don't
In
we
the old
all?
days, I
Yeah.
proctored exams.
Yep.
Guys missing class was a big deal. Now, I don't want to say it's more lax, but people are more understanding. When I went to college, we didn't have Wi-Fi.
Right.
Our guys are on the bus. We always have a Wi-Fi bus, and there will be 18 of the 22 guys will be doing homework at any given minute, on the bus ride, taking
Right.
tests, doing whatever. So the standard, I want to say that it's more lax, but there's a lot more understanding now. Hey, you're taking the course, but you're taking by Zoom. My son the other day did an oral exam, through Zoom.
Oh,
That would
sure.
have happened in the old days, right? People are a lot
Right.
more understanding, and it's more. I think it's the flexibility has certainly helped us. And we did have study tables, and then we didn't have study tables because I didn't like the guys being jammed in a room,
Yeah.
potentially infecting each other. For us, what we did a little bit, what you said, Coach Salcedo did, is
Yeah.
listen. Here are the expectations.
Yep.
Most people at a regional, unless you're at a national research-oriented university, University of Wisconsin or Indiana or Ohio State, perhaps UCLA, most faculty are there to help you.
Yeah.
And that's I think one of the things that our kids forget. You don't become a professor to not be. It's a helping profession essentially. And so most of our guys, when we've had guys struggle, I would say, well, did you go to the professor? Well, I go, no, they have office hours. There are lots of people there who want to help you. And I've yet in my long career to ever have anyone said, well, I went to the professor and he told me he didn't want to help me.
Yeah. No.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And so most of the guys, I always say, it's not when we've had a couple of guys over all my years coaching who flunked out, and it's not that they didn't try, it's that they actively tried to flunk out.
Yeah.
Like it's nearly impossible, given especially now with sort of general COVID grace.
Yes.
Hey, I have something to do. Can you help me? If you want to succeed, it's there for everybody. And I notice I follow everyone in the Midwest on Instagram.
Yeah.
And everyone's team GPAs have shot up.
Yeah. I would agree
everywhere.
with
So
you.
there's great inflation across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not passing, then you're not trying.
Yeah, you're right, and just based on the experience I have with my kids going through college sports and the kids from MTA, I'll agree with you that you really kind of have to try to screw up if you're to do it. Meaning you don't go to class, you lie to the coaches and the professors about what you're doing and where you are and things like that. You're not honest with yourself. You're not honest with them. There's a lot of help. And actually, probably if the general student body knew how much help was available to the athletes, they'd be a little bit upset that they aren't getting also as much help, whether it's study tables with older players who have the same major and have been through the same courses, or getting tutors available to them. There are a lot of resources for student athletes, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
want the goal is for people to succeed, which is fantastic. Let me just interject here. If you have a question, please type it into the Q&A, not into the chat. At the end of this conversation with Sean and myself, we will you'll have the opportunity to complete a survey, which will help MTA out on how we go forward with things. But again, we have Sean Holmes, who's the head coach of St. Cloud State University. Sean, we have a number of age ranges and different graduation years of both players and parents on here. So let me ask you, if as their student athlete, as a freshman, as a sophomore, can you give some advice on, okay, you're not really maybe doing your college search yet, at least not getting it narrowed down, but what things would you, as based on kids who come in as freshmen, that boy, you wish they would have done as freshmen in high school, sophomores in high school, to kind of put themselves in a better position academically, athletically, physically, whatever. What kind of advice would you give the younger players and families that are listening in today?
Man, that's a big question. Okay, number one, today, Man City played Arsenal and Chelsea played Dortmund in the Champions League, available on Peacock and Paramount. If I was a parent, I would spend the money, for whatever Peacock is a month, for whatever
You're
Paramount
saying
is,
to
whatever
go there,
ESPN.
right, and watch the games in person? No, I'm kidding.
I wish, but
Right.
I'm amazed by how many guys are not improving their soccer brains by watching soccer. Like it is remarkable. You and I are of an age that, I don't know if you remember this on PBS. They used to have Soccer Made in Germany.
Every the weekend morning, Saturday morning.
Toby Charles would
Sunday morning.
take a 90-minute Bundesliga game and reduce it to like 52 minutes, and we watched that game.
Yep.
And for a while, I didn't even know soccer was 90 minutes long because I hadn't seen anything else. So I'm amazed by the number of guys who aren't watching soccer. That now, when they argue back with me, they watch Ronaldo and Messi highlights, and they see parts of games, but they don't learn to concentrate over long periods of time to watch the game and to learn from it. And that's a big difference. We'll get into this later, but a big difference between American and European players. Those kids in Europe and other countries have watched more soccer live or on TV. Number two, no guy, and I'm not this is not a big kick, but I'll throw it in here. No guy in football or basketball hasn't lifted weights or done some strength and speed conditioning. And I'm amazed by the number of guys who get to, because, soccer clubs usually don't have the ability to go into a weight room, before or after training. Every high school football kid has lifted, has squatted, has done a bench press. And I'm not overly obsessed about it, but it's something, right? You can't wait to get to college to start developing your body.
Yeah, we talk a lot about resilient muscle and injury prevention, which you're hitting on right there.
Yeah, this is too vital. Number three, playing with older players, and I don't know what your club is about, but the best thing I ever did for my son was not necessarily playing with the team, but having the club move players up for training, even so that 16-year-olds are training with 17, 18s are playing with men, in the summer leagues. I think that's better to play with older guys, because you're going to get to college and it's no longer age appropriate, right? ODP is birth years, State Cup is birth years. You get to college. My son's team last year, they had 25-year-old guys on his team. Right. Yeah. If you've only played against other 18-year-olds, it's going to be big trouble. The fourth thing, I think, and we'll touch on this probably several times during the thing, school actually matters. Your grades matter. Wherever you're going, a good portion, as I talked about the tripartite financial aid, a lot of your financial aid and grant money is going to come from good grades. So, you can knock it out of the park on your ACT or SAT, but even the board scores are less important than they were a couple of years ago. GPA is driving a lot of this, and you can't fix your GPA if you poop the bed, freshman and sophomore year. You spend a lot of energy junior and senior year trying to recoup your GPA, and that doesn't help you. I know at Drake, for example, although the school costs close, I'm at probably $50,000 now. I had 80% of my team getting merit aid awards of $12, $13, $14, $15, $16,000 a year, which is a big discounting off the cost, and the way those schools, private schools especially, can be competitive. Probably John talked about that with St. Thomas last year. The other thing is, and we talked about this a little bit before it started, you have no excuse not to know about a school anymore.
Yeah.
There's no, I'll give you an idea. I went to the barn on Sunday. I got free tickets to see my former Iowa Hawkeyes against Minnesota Golden Gophers of men's basketball. So I sat right behind the bench, right behind Fran McCaffrey. And I got texts all game long from former players who were watching me on TV. No guy in America hasn't watched college basketball. In our family, we're a Kansas basketball family. My sons watch every single game. Everyone watched the Super Bowl. Everyone watched college football. They know what Iowa football or Minnesota, row the boat and so on and so forth. The number of guys who haven't watched college soccer, even though it's available now, right? You've got some games on ACC Network and Fox carries a couple of games and so on. But if you go to ESPN Plus, you can see 30 games almost every night. Right. My son was at Evansville. He redshirted this year, but I watched all 90 minutes of the game against Indiana. Right. Henry, the Minnesota guy, was there. There's no excuse not to have seen college soccer, but the number of guys who haven't watched our team or any team play college soccer, right? There's no one on this call. There are 40 participants. So let's imagine it's you and me plus a bunch of guys.
Yep.
No one is sitting there going, you know what? I think I could play Big Ten basketball.
Yeah.
No, you're 5'10". I don't think you can, right? Or I played a little bit of Pop Warner football. I'm 6 foot, 160. I think I could still play college football. No, you can't. But
Yeah.
there are guys who say that all the time. And I have coaches. Coaches are equally guilty of this, right? Not so much club, sometimes high school, but sometimes club coaches as well. Say, I think he could play for you. I said, have you seen us play? No, but I got an idea. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. But before going to see, so if you're in Minnesota, now that we have St. Thomas playing Division I and ourselves playing Division II, the MIAC, which is super competitive, you could go to a game.
Yeah.
Right? I went to several college games last year during my season. I never saw anyone who looked 17 or 18 years old watching the game. I saw parents, I saw college students from the college, I saw local coaches, but I never saw a guy go, oh, you know what? I went to the McAllister St. John's playoff game after our season was over.
Yeah.
It was, 4:00 in the afternoon, school had ended. I didn't see any 17-year-old guys watching that going, oh, you know what? McAllister pretty good. Like, I don't know if I could play here. And I think this was a long-winded answer, but what's most frustrating to me is that there's so many resources available to people now, yet they still choose not to seek them out.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, like right now, I'm watching Adam Sandler, Just Go With It. I was just watching Coconut Smoochie, a great scene. If I go over to ESPN Plus, there are 35 basketball games on.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. During the season, every football game can be live streamed now. But during the college soccer season, which is fall, runs same time as college football, every game is on.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Elon this year. I watched Syracuse. I watched all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Yet the guys who need to be, I don't need to be watching. I do it because I love soccer. But the guys who think they want to play at that level are not watching soccer.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. Yeah.
Big problem.
We encourage kids to watch it. It's just, if you want to do what the big guys do, watch how they do it. I would agree with you. You touched on a couple things there. Playing up, we every Sunday night we play an 11v11 game with 3 ECNL teams playing against each other. So our U13s play the 14s and 15s. Our U16s play the 17s and 18s. So for 1 year, you're getting pounded on because you're the youngest guy. For 1 year, you're that kind of the middle. You play against an older team, you play against a younger team, and then 1 year you're the older team, and you're helping the other teams,
Absolutely.
other teams advance and do that. So I absolutely agree with that. And there's also futsal leagues and different things like that where players can get involved with, and that's sometimes you're going to be playing against a year or 2 years older than you. The other thing you touched on were grades, and that's so important. We talk a lot about, maybe you can touch on. I tell kids, when you start this process, think big picture. Do you want mountains or oceans? Do you want a big city or a rural city? Do you want a liberal campus or a conservative campus or a religious campus? Find people that you want to hang out with for 4 or 5 years, because that's how long you're going to be there. And when you do that, you'll probably be friends with some of these people the rest of your life. They'll be in your wedding. You'll go to their weddings. You guys it'll be a significant connection. So put yourself where you feel the most comfortable and where you think you'll belong. So, but having said that, you can be the most amazing soccer player in the world, but if you don't have the grades to get into that school that you want to go to, it doesn't matter how good your skills are. So I like that you're promoting that a lot, that the grades are important.
Too many guys watch Sports Center and they think that that's sort of what college soccer looks like. And they go, well, this guy, remember we used to talk about Prop 48s a lot, guys who are not eligible to play.
Yeah.
No one is interested. Here's the other thing. When a coach is recruiting, and Neil Jones really kind of put this best last week, the head coach at Wisconsin. He used to be at Loyola. We used to coach against each other. He's like, I don't want to hang out with we don't use this word anymore. I don't want to hang out with dummies for 4 years. I don't want to be worrying about guys. I don't want guys who are not interesting. I want guys. And you talked about the wedding, and I don't know, is your son married yet?
No.
Okay, so
No.
when he gets married, there will be guys, most of the guys who are in your wedding party will be guys you didn't know till you were 18 years old.
Yeah,
right? I've been to
very true.
25 weddings in the last 10 years or so. I'm going to another one March 4th in Des Moines. And his wedding party is 4 guys he played college soccer with. He literally did not know those guys till he got to college.
Yeah.
And I think, finding those places where you're comfortable with those guys and understanding that you have similar values. There'll be diversity, but guys that you're interested in hanging out with is a big deal. And again, a lot of our guys getting to social media. I do learn most of my stuff about programs through Instagram. And the first thing I do when we're recruiting a guy is I look them up on Instagram and Facebook. And then I have one of our captains look them up on Snapchat. Because you get to get a little more truthful story when you get to Snapchat than you do perhaps on Instagram.
Yeah, well, and there's another thing. When Jackson went to UCLA, one of the first things they told him when they started recruiting him was they have software and algorithms that they track all their recruited players on social media. If you put things on social media that are, not proper, they will immediately drop recruiting you. So that's a great thing to mention right there, is be careful what you do and be careful what, everything is viral nowadays.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A couple things to touch on here, if you don't mind. Let me ask you, what kinds of things do you recommend for players as they're trying to communicate with college coaches? Emailing obviously is the beginning. How do you get noticed by a college program just through email? Does it happen? Does it not happen? What would you say would be your best recommendation for kids starting that process or in the middle of that process?
Accuracy and specificity. When you're writing me, it's Dear Sean Holmes, it's the Huskies, it's St. Cloud. Knowing here in the old days, you had to mail people, right? And no one wanted to send out VHS tapes or even CDs 10 years ago. You had to be a little more selective. Now you can press a button and you can send your highlight video to 150 schools in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And when it just says, so I delete everything that says Dear Coach.
Yeah.
Like literally delete, right? Because I have to work my way through so much stuff.
Let me ask you real quickly, how many emails do you get? I mean, you're deleting some, so you're saying I get how many ish emails?
50 a day.
There you go.
50 a day. And
that's close.
40.
That's between 600 and 700 a week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It just goes and goes. And Zach, some email both of us, some it's just my assistant. We're getting a lot of them, and we're getting a ton more from overseas. And I'm talking like everywhere. And we'll talk maybe a little bit about international recruiting in a little bit. But listen, when a guy says, I'm excited, right? Our program is 2 years old. I'm excited about the long and great tradition of your school,
right?
Of your school soccer program. I'm like, no, 2 years, and we're not
Delete.
good yet. So don't say it's been great. Saying something like, I went to St. Cloud for a state regional game, or I did an ODP tryout there once, or making something that looks like I'm not one of 1,000 guys. I always sort of equate recruiting to dating, asking someone out to prom. You wouldn't go to prom and say, listen, I'm asking 100 girls to prom, and the first that says yes is my answer.
Right.
Or, I'm going to pick the tallest or whatever. It's like, I want to have the sense that you've given a little bit of thought to this and go, okay, if you're a Minnesota kid, I don't want to go to school too far away.
Yeah.
I want to
like
I
you
don't
said,
want to be in a
research.
small town. Yeah, I don't want to be in a small town. I like that you're in an actual city. I like that you have, I'm interested in nursing. We have a very good nursing program. We've got a great education program. My son is doing environmental engineering. We used to have an aeronautical program. They dropped it 5 years ago. And twice a year, I still have a guy saying, I'm very interested in your aeronautical program.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, not really. Not really.
So it takes a little due diligence. You have to do some research.
Yeah. If you're not willing to do a little bit of homework, then we're not really willing to commit time to looking into you as a player.
So the message is make it personalized, specific, and do a little research on the school and the program before you reach out to any coaches.
Absolutely.
That's a common theme last year when we did the college recruiting webinar the year before. Would be the same thing. And the worst one is where you get an email from a player and they say, hello, Coach Mark Yueill, when Mark doesn't work at that program
Yeah.
because he
Oh, I
works at
love
it.
those. I
The,
love
the
those.
last email he sent. How about highlight videos? Do you spend much time watching highlight videos? How does a player, and if you do, or if you do watch a video, tell me what you like. Is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, rap music, classical music? What do you want to see? What do you want to see a highlight video look like from players? What's the best value for our players to put something together?
Well, Mark, I'm an 80s new wave guy. Just so you know, I
Perfect.
listen to Channel 33, first wave on Sirius.
Uh-huh.
I don't really care about the music as long as it's, not laced with profanity. I'm pretty good,
Right.
and I understand.
Yeah.
I understand the guys want to listen to Steve Lacy or whoever it may be.
I don't know.
Oh, he's a good one. I think a couple of minutes. Lots of people now are attaching huddle. High school. An entire game.
Yep.
And I look at that on the second or third level. On the first one, I'm not going to invest enough time to go through all games. So it's highlights that catch my eye.
Yep.
One of the best highlight videos I ever got was from a kid from North Branch, Brian Grand. Do you remember Brian Grand?
I don't. I don't. I mean,
He'd
I know
be
the North
he'd be
Branch area.
30-ish now. Anyhow, his video was so good that I thought that he had sped it up. I was like, oh, he can't be this fast. This is ridiculous. It turned out
Sure.
he was that fast. But then I always think of him. This was most interesting. I was born in Switzerland by accident. My dad was playing hockey there.
Okay.
And it is listed as the last thing in my biography. And Sean Holmes was born in Arrow, Switzerland, and his wife and kids live in Des Moines, Iowa. And this guy goes, as I see, I was born in Switzerland as you were. And I was like, that's a guy who read to the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, he took it, and he ended up coming and playing for us and being very good. And that a little attention, as I said, attention to detail was really important. But
Caught
the
your
video,
attention.
a highlight video, and here's the thing now. Everyone now, and I don't know if this was with the club, but certainly with high school, everyone has a bank, an archive of huddle video, right?
Yeah.
I mean, almost every high school has huddle now. And so I told my son, 2 years ago, whenever this was going on, I said, you have nothing to do in the summer. You need to devote a couple of days to going through everything. And he was so excited to end up doing one for his buddy as well. But
Nice.
he made a very good highlight video that was 7 minutes long. No one watches 7 minutes of
No.
highlights. Like
Yeah.
I do, because I'm his dad. I actually, once every couple of weeks, I watch it occasionally because it was good.
Yeah.
But no college coach has the time to go through that. But it's a little bit. This comes a little bit, not to celebrate your club or other clubs, but this is when a guy has his references on there and said, and if you have here are my highlights, and if you have any other questions, you can talk to Mark Yueill, you can talk to Danny Storleen, you can talk to our goalie friend Terry Leindecker, who I love, right? You can look to those guys. I know that I can call Terry and say, listen, give me the scoop on this guy.
Yep.
And this is not to denigrate high school coaches, but most of your high school coaches love you, right? A lot of your coaches love you. Your job is to provide honest information, because that as a key guy in the Minnesota soccer community, you don't want to send me a guy who's not good enough, and then the next year I call you and you call me and say, hey, I got a guy for you.
I tell our players all the time, I'm going to be honest with college coaches, so just know that ahead of
It's
time.
stock and trade. It's too important. And I think just like a job, having good references are key to being somewhere. And so when kids are trying to decide on a club, being somewhere where you have the club's reputation of producing players and moving players on, I think is important.
Yeah, for sure. Recruiting services. Are they valuable? And I guess this is a general, do you use them? And maybe you can touch on whether, generally speaking.
I told you I was on a Zoom seminar last week in Wisconsin with 5 coaches. All 5 coaches at the same time in unison shouted they hated them.
Yeah.
And here listen, the kids in your club are already paying money.
Yep.
It's your job. It's your job. It's not NCSA or NSR or whoever's job. If you're not getting that from your club, then you have a problem with the club. The club is not functioning and needs to be helping you out. Those cost a lot of money, and the upcharge, you go to a tournament and everyone has to register through NSC or whatever, and everyone gets excited, and then a guy calls you the next week. I still get calls from my son 2 years later, right? And for this low sum of $3,000 will help get you, to the next level. I'm like, I don't want to spend another $3,000. already traveled all over, Kingdom Come to play soccer and then to get good coaching. Uh,
Yeah.
and we know that those coaching services are sort of pay for play.
Yeah.
So
There are schools, and I'm obviously we have players involved in that maybe don't have recruiting budgets, or they are geographically somewhere where it's very tough to get to places and watch things and stuff. And we find that some of those do, but generally speaking, every time I talk to a college coach, it's the same answer you just gave, is that, yeah, we don't find any value in it. We want to do our own due diligence and dig into a player ourselves. And yeah. On that same question, on the same level, college ID camps. Maybe talk a little bit about your view on their value, their how important they are, how you would recommend players approach those. I have a very strong opinion about them, so I'll let you go first because they want to hear you talk, not
you're
me.
setting me up. They are useful, but make no mistake, the colleges are running them to make money.
Yeah.
So my son went to a camp in Chicago, and he paid $100, and there were 100 kids there. And my friend was the coach at the time. And I said, "Hey, how did Matthew do?" This is my oldest son. He goes, "I can't really tell you. There were so many guys there. I have no idea."
Yeah.
So he then went to a camp in the Ivy League the next year, and they capped the numbers. They called it a Super 60. So there are only Super 60 kids there, but you were there for 3 days. And I really felt they got a good sense of whether he could play or not. They're done to run money makers to help support the programs, maybe pay assistants, do other stuff for the program, but they can be useful. But it is very much what we call a cattle call. So we had our last ID camp in December. We had 60 guys there because it's about as maximum density for the dome, in the winter. And we found 2 really good guys, right?
Yeah.
That both of them were JUCO guys now. So it wasn't even all high school seniors and juniors. Both of them were JUCO transfers. But I know that we missed players in the 60. Right. It's just impossible.
Right. My strong feelings are pretty simple. I think they're very valuable. And it goes back to something you said earlier. If you've done the research on the schools first, I've had one player in my mind, particularly actually was as a girl. And she and her parents went to 15 different college ID camps. She wasn't interested in 15 schools, but she just went to, they sent her everywhere. But once you get closer to, I really like this school, this is a place that's important to me, and you haven't gotten the joy from the coaches, from them coming to watch you, attending that ID camp is a great value. It's hey, I really want to attend St. Cloud State. I haven't gotten the attention. I'm going to go play. It's a way to get in front of, and for the coaches to talk to you and work with you. It's also a chance because, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the schools have their current players working at the camps.
Yep.
So they have an all-star game at the end, and you get to, they want to test out the players there. So you sometimes get to play against them and it's either sink or swim type of scenario. So
I think, and I don't know who
like
does
them if you've done your work ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't know who the college coordinator is your club, whether you have a specific coordinator, it's you as DOC, or it's the age group coach, who's working with them. Okay, perfect. I think when you sit down with a family, and I used to be the college coordinator at Sporting Iowa when I was doing high school a couple of years ago. And we would have guys come in and say, "I have a 22 ACT, but I want to go to Harvard."
Right.
No, you're not. Don't waste your money, flying out to Cambridge, Massachusetts, thinking that's going to happen. Right. I'm like the 7th best guy on our U17 team, but I want to play at Indiana. Yeah. I said, well, Indiana, we're in the Final Four yet again. Last autumn.
With Herbert,
I don't know if that's a good fit. Yeah, and I think I don't know how many parents are amongst the 46 participants here, but it's their job to listen to you, like what you're doing, and the guy who was Masson 56ers last week, he knows what he's doing. A lot of these clubs, if you're being paid to run the club, you have an idea of what's going on, and it doesn't mean the parents will agree with you, right? Sure. But it's in your best interest, it's in their best interest to try and point them in the right direction and have an idea. And because you've been doing this for a while, what it looks like longitudinally, right? The last 4 guys we've sent to this school, or blah, 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 blah. In some cases, there's turnover. I saw, Craig Peltonen at Marion up in Wisconsin, he just retired yesterday. So you don't know what Marion's going to look like, right? But Craig was there for 35 years. So you could say, I know at Marion, this is the kind of guy who's had success. And I think that's that the people need to listen, and they need to take up your time. I know it's a lot of work, but that hour and a half, that 2 hours you spend with a family is going to help shape give them a little bit of guidance on their search and on their pathway. And I think that's invaluable, in my opinion.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah.
I take the approach of I ask a lot of questions about where they are academically, what their interests are, because we do have a lot of kids who think a certain soccer program is sexy, but they're not interested in studying what that school is known for, or have the grades to get in there. So I agree with you there. Or I also, depending on their age, don't want to steer them away if they think that they can develop something, but increase and improve something between now and then. It's not my job to say no, but I can certainly give them a background on what I've seen happen in the past, for sure. How many games, college games, get played in the fall? I want to give, and let me start with giving you a heads up here. I want to talk a little bit about what a typical college athlete's week and season, and then maybe year looks like. What is that?
Okay, preseason. You
Yeah.
show up August 10th, roughly. It's regardless of where you're in the country, it's like 104 degrees.
Right.
You're on turf, you're in down south, wherever you may be, it's going to be hot. You're going to do roughly 2 a days. Gone are the days of three a days, but we did 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, depending on the heat and so on and what the wear and tear was. School starts August 25, 6, 7, and a couple days after that, you start your season. Everyone is playing a little bit like in Europe, where they play 2 games a week, right? You're playing a cup game or a Champions League, or then league games on the weekend. You're playing 1 to 2 games every single week. Our conference, we play a Friday, Sunday, right? Except with your travel partner. So it's hard work. In Division I now, we'll take the Big Ten, for example. They play 9 Saturdays in a row. And then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they play regional opponents, probably 5, 6, 7 of those weeks. So you're going to play 16 to 20 regular season games. Almost everyone has a postseason tournament now, which can be 2 to 3 games. I think it used to be someone could play 4, I think, in the Big Ten, but it's now 2 to 3. And then you go to the NCAA tournament, right? Sometime in mid-November. But that travels. So on a regular week, you have Monday off, you train Tuesday, you train Wednesday, you train lightly or travel on Thursday. So I tell our guys, we're going to train 2.5 times a week.
Yeah.
The actual player development is minimal during the season. You're in survival mode.
Yeah.
You're going to lift 1 to 3 times a week. If you're a guy playing 180 minutes on the weekend, you're doing a light lift on Tuesday, a recovery kind of maintenance lift. If you're a skinny, my old high school coach, Pippy Squeak freshman, and you're not playing a lot, you're lifting 3 times hard, to get strong and to build some mass and strength and so on.
It depends on your workload, for the games. Yep.
Yep. And then the biggest part of that is when we travel on a Thursday or we're at home, 15, 16, 17 guys are playing a lot, and 10, 12. The average college squad is between 26 and 32 guys, maybe more at Division III level. I think we've carried 34 guys the last 2 years. That's a lot of guys not playing. And so on Saturday, when the guys come in to stretch and recover and do some work, we'll play for an hour and a half. Some of a lot of the subs, a lot of the guys who haven't gotten minutes. And some of the players think of it as sort of being punitive, but it's really, otherwise your fitness over the course of the season is going to decline because the starters are getting a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I think that is most difficult, when you travel, you have an enforced social environment. You're on a bus, you're in a hotel. Whereas in club soccer, where a lot of your travel maybe is with your parents who are going to help your sleeping, and
Yep.
hygiene and nutrition decisions, you're on your own here now. On our very first trip 2 years ago, I think we were in Grand Rapids, Michigan, playing Davenport, and we had a pillow fight in the hallway with all our freshmen who were 18 years old. And I turned to Zach Nyberger, our assistant, and I go, "That's why we're going to lose tomorrow."
Yeah.
Those guys are still on a club soccer state cup trip.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to youth soccer. It's just they're just like so giddy. Can you believe we went on this big bus ride and we had pizza and we're in a hotel and there's a pool and maybe there's some cute girls in the hot tub and geez, it was really
Right.
fun and this is great. But then on the other side, you're leaving home 10 to 14 guys, and those guys are on a college campus, right? And so making the correct social decisions, probably 80% of our disciplinary issues happen with those guys when they're at home because they have nothing to risk. When you're on the road or you're a starter, it's like, man, I'm so excited I'm starting. I don't want to lose my spot. I'm so excited I made the travel roster. I don't want to lose my spot. I'm the 33rd guy who gives a rat's ass. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? Not play me? I already don't play. And so I find it's those guys who make the decisions, who get into trouble with their RAs in the dorm or, the drinking age in America is 21, right? Unlike Canada, where I come from,
So
those
then,
guys all have fake IDs and think they're too clever and they're never going to get caught.
I never did that.
Yes.
Maybe give a little picture of what the spring season looks like.
So D2,
again,
D1, we start, I think we've got the first week off and then we started January 17th, whatever it may be. We train for 5 or 6 weeks. We're in an 8-hour training period. So out of season, 8 hours means we train 3 times for an hour and a half. That gets us to 4.5 hours. And then we lift 3 times a week. There's your 7.5. You add a few minutes here and there and you get to 8 hours.
7.5 hours. Yeah.
When we go to the 20 hours, which starts in a couple of weeks, we then play. So we're going to play Minnesota United 2. We're going to play St. Thomas. We're going to play UW Superior because in the UMAC, they're allowed to play 1 game. We play an MPSL. We play the Twin Stars because that's where my son plays. So I'm friends with the Darbakis. So we play those guys. And we will train, through the whole spring, all the way to April 22nd. NCAA then mandates that we have to have a week off before exams, which I don't actually like. The guys, of course, want to keep playing. They just play pickup the whole time. And they go to exams and they start playing summer soccer. Really, once May rolls around, they start playing. And, there are now 3 USL2 teams in Minnesota. There's multiple NPSL teams. There's so many UPSL. There's so many great opportunities to play that the guys need to go do it. And the guys who never do it and always have a good excuse, oh, I've got an internship here, or I couldn't go there, or whatever. Those are the guys who lose steam over the course of the summer and fall behind the other guys, right?
Yeah.
You can't give up 60 playing opportunities over the course of the summer and expect to keep up with the rest of the guys.
I've heard the term competitive endurance. As freshmen in particular come in, that they're not physically ready. They're great for the first couple weeks, maybe month, but then they lose that competitive. They just can't maintain it because they haven't done the work ahead of time. Same thing with players that you just mentioned. They're not engaged during the summer, and they're not doing what is important to their body and for their development. And they hit the fall.
You see the difference between freshmen and seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tie one thing back together here. I got a great question from a parent on our Q&A. That says, emails get deleted given the volume. ID camps are money makers. Recruiting sites are favored by college coaches, or not favored by college coaches. What should they focus their efforts on? I know what my answer to this is, but what should players and families, where should they put their time and energy in for helping their kid get into a college program?
As I said, and with great emphasis a few minutes ago, working in tandem with your coaching coordinator or your college coordinator in your club. Then you've called me about guys that you just can't shoot out an email and hope you get some kind of response. You have to do something. Here I am. It's really, to me, the references are key. When I say, hey, who's the guy last year? Son of a gun. He's at Dallas. Who's at Dallas Baptist?
Oh, Leo Larson.
Leo Larson. So I like Leo Larson. St. Paul Academy boy.
Yep.
But when he reached out to us, he sent an email. He said, "I play for MTA." Okay, I've heard of MTA. They're step number one. I know Mark Yueill can tell you what a great guy I am. Okay, there's step number two. I have a 3 point whatever his GPA was, which is really good. Okay, this is another plus. And those are those things. We're and it wasn't dear coach, it was dear Coach Holmes.
Yeah. He did a little research.
So he hit all these little marks that make a difference. That I said, okay, I got it. If putting in Holmes was too difficult for you, 6 letters, you couldn't go from dear coach to dear Coach Holmes.
Right.
You've written a lot of people. And Leo, here's the other part. Eventually, and we've ignored this so far. It's great that this question came from a parent. No parent yet has played for me in college. I've been coaching 30 years. It's only been the guys. And eventually we're going to have a conversation, and learning to engage as an adult and be to have agency for your own experience is absolutely vital. If you're that mumble guy, or you can't make eye contact or hold eye contact, if you shake hand like a dead fish, if you show up at your visit and you look ratty and kind of shitty and like you don't really care to be there, all that kind of stuff. Remember I talked about dating, right? When you finally do get that big date, you don't show up with bad breath. You don't show up with whatever, with the booger hanging out in your nose. You try and put your best foot forward. And I think this is but more than anything, being able to talk and to speak and to engage is a vital skill, right? Because eventually you're going to get to that level. We have another guy coming tomorrow, visit on Monday. We had 2 guys last Monday, guys rolling in. They have to be able to speak for themselves, right?
Yep.
The moment the mom or dad dominates the conversation, it's over. They've got to be there, and they've got to show, some empathy and some sort of
involvement,
some kind of demeanor and involvement.
Yep.
But when mom or dad runs it, it's a problem, and we're not really interested in that anymore.
Oh, the mom or dad are not going to be going to school. That's correct. That's great. This is a great question also from a parent. Talk a little bit, if you will, on MLS Next versus other leagues. ECNL obviously is our place of competition, but how do you view the MLS Next programs? Do you spend a lot of time there? Division I obviously likely does, but talk a little bit about maybe that environment versus other environments. And
Mark, I am the worst human being to ask that question, and I'll tell you why. You talked earlier about geography, guys coming from places that don't have options. In hockey, we have big time hockey. Our team's ranked, I don't know, top 10 every year, Division I in St. Cloud State, the Huskies.
Top 5.
No one goes from high school to college hockey. They go somewhere. They know that they're going to move to Sioux Falls or Alaska or wherever to play junior hockey for a year or two to become tougher, older, stronger before they go play collegiately. The MLS, one of my former players at Drake, his son has moved to Austin, right? We're 3 hours from Kansas City, 3 hours from Minnesota, but Austin discovered him. So I'm friends with he and his wife on Facebook. His mom posted 7 things about crying, and this was the greatest / worst day in her life. And their 13-year-old boy has moved to Austin.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? I don't know. And I'll give you 2 stories. Number one, our family, because of my wife being from Kansas, we're big Kansas City Chiefs fans. So obviously we're quite happy this week. But Pacheco, the running back, number 10, who came out of nowhere, played at Rutgers, perennially the worst team in the Big Ten, right? Mm-hmm. There were guys all over the place, right? You could argue that Mahomes was under the radar at Texas Tech, and there are guys coming from everywhere. And that's the thing in college soccer. So last week, 2 weeks ago, Weston McKennie signed from Juventus to Leeds, went out on loan. And not soon enough to save Jesse Marsh's job, but nonetheless, great player. And there was a great Instagram post where it talked about Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie played together on the edge. They're very clear about this, on the edge of national teams, right? These guys are bossing it in the Premier League, right? And playing in the World Cup. How exactly were they only on the edge of these teams, right? And I think that this is the number one confusing factor for youth soccer in America is puberty. Every single year, people are confused by puberty, right? You remember my Andrew, right? Who came and tried out for MTA a couple years ago. He's now 6'4", 195.
Yeah.
But he wasn't 6'4", 195 at, whatever. And this is another one of the differences in boys and girls, right? Girls are hitting puberty earlier. So at 16, you have a better idea of sort of probably their ultimate, adult athleticism. No kid looks like he's going to look. And coaches, regardless of what they say, regardless of what's on the website of the brochure, they always talk about, well, we're about development in our club. To which I always say, bullshit. You're about winning. 90% of us are, right? And the funny thing is, you're not really going to get hired or fired based on winning. You don't choose your coaches based on winning, and you want them to make better players. And so whenever I hear from my youth soccer friends, they go, "Oh, we're now in ECNL, and now we're in MRL. MRL doesn't even exist anymore. I don't know if it does. All these leagues, MLS Next, all these kind of things. They're picking players on the boy I told you about that went off to Austin FC. Guess what? He's the biggest, strongest 13-year-old in the club.
Yeah.
Right. He's a good soccer player. Right. But he hit puberty first.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not concerned with where guys come from. And the funny thing is, and we haven't touched on this, but you talked about maybe Division I. You kind of snuck it in there. You go, maybe Division I cares about this. They actually don't, because 3 of the 4 Final Four teams this year in the College Cup in Division I had 14 international players on it. Only Indiana had 1 who was sort of a role player on their team. I think it was a Dutch or a German kid. Indiana was all American kids, Midwest kids for the most part. The rest of them were from everywhere. And because of the transfer portal, Syracuse, who won, had 14 foreigners and 12 of them were transfers.
Yeah.
Right.
Older,
never mind,
more
we haven't really talked.
developed.
Yeah, the COVID. So I think it's where you play MLS Next, all that is irrelevant. That's not a commonly held opinion, but it's my opinion.
Well, and I think, and I've heard this more and more very recently from college coaches, Division I in particular, that they're spending a lot of time recruiting MLS kids, and then coming down to the wire before they show up on campus, they're getting signed to $31,000, $28,000 reserve team contract, and they're losing those kids. So they're starting to put their focus on kids who, like you said, may develop a little bit later, but they're going to be there for 4 years, 5 years. Yeah. They're going to be part of their program for a longer term.
You threw in the magic number in there too, and I know Devin Padelford, who committed to us a couple of years ago, and Emmanuel Iwe, who left us early. When you watch college basketball and a guy leaves early, or NFL and leaves for the draft, and they sign for $10 million, I said, you know what? $10 million is a good amount of money. I think you could go back and finish that degree later on. But $31,000. And I know that it's the pathway and it's the option. But I'm still a big believer that a college degree has great value, and there are still lots of players who can make it to the show. Did your son play? Did he play 4 years at UCLA?
He did not. He played 2 years. So he went in as a freshman. He got offered after his freshman year the chance for a Generation Adidas contract. Without talking to his mom or me, he turned it down.
Good for him.
Blew me away. He went back for his sophomore year, and then took the Generation Adidas offer the following year, with the promise that he made to his mom and me that he would finish college, which he's yet to follow through on. So I think I have to ground him. But
there you go.
Yep, tough to ground a kid who's about to turn 26. But
still possible.
Still, I can say it whether it happens or not, right? Anyway, so we push that very hard, that there's a value to, and not only a value to going to school and getting the degree, but the maturity process, being on your own a little bit, even though you're in your dorm or things like that, and growing up. You talked about the European players that are getting recruited to come in, the kids on the transfer portal. Right now, we are struggling with this time of year. We would have had easily 3/4 or more of our college senior or of our high school seniors committed to programs. We're not there yet because the programs are full, and the transfer portal, and correct me if I'm wrong, opens again at the beginning of May. And so a lot of the college coaches are waiting to commit kids who are going to graduate 30 days later because they want to see what they can get on the transfer portal first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I call it the portal to the underworld.
It pretty much
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
It's terrible. And the funny thing is, or not the funny thing, I know in basketball last year, 60% of the kids in the transfer portal did not end up at schools.
Yeah. Yep.
60%. And I think Zach checked the other day. I thought there were like 11,000 in men's soccer. 11,000.
And
Is that possible? Yeah. I don't even know. It seems like a big number. Whatever it was a lot. It was a lot. I remember a school, I won't name it, but a school that I know of in the Midwest that might be in a contiguous state had 11 guys in the portal.
Yeah.
Right. And the coaches are using it to flush guys out.
Yeah.
And the kids are all think they're going, everyone's going to transfer to Virginia or UCLA or Notre Dame, but it's not really the case. It's a false freedom, I think.
It is
a false freedom. Again,
it's
I'll bring it back.
Part of the process, though. It's part of what's going on.
Even if you send someone off to college, the kids need to know that you're in a way, you're their coach for life. Like it's not unreasonable for them 2 years later to come back to you and say, hey, I'm in a bit of a pickle here. Can you give me some guidance?
Yeah.
Because you're the only person who can really sort of be an objective, right? That the coach is not. We had a boy last year who was going to transfer St. Cloud State from a Division I school, and they said, "Well, I don't want to come to your school because I'm going to go pro." I said, "Well, you've already been cut. You're pushed out of your Division I college team. Who's helping you go pro?" He said, "Oh, the coach at the school that pushed me out." I said, "So." I won't tell you the name of this kid because you know who he is. I'm like, so the guy who just cut you 2 months ago is the guy who's going to help you sign a pro contract,
right?
And I had to call Zach immediately. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. This is the kind of silliness we're up against, and he's still not playing anywhere. He's been out of Division I soccer now for a year and a half, and still aspires to make a pro. He was at the Minneapolis City tryouts at Augsburg at Christmas.
Oh, sure.
Right. Yeah. And he didn't make the top group there.
Yeah.
And he's not playing college soccer. You can only help so many people.
It is. Yeah. Well, I don't see any new questions here. So we'll kind of wrap it up. I'll say this. Sean mentioned that I'm kind of the guy. Skylar and I coach the ECNL teams. Jonah is our 0405, so juniors and seniors with our NPL team. Jonah's a college coach at Augsburg. Skylar played at Gustavus. I've been doing this for 127 years, so I know a little bit around the program and how it works. We are the people you can talk to, and if I don't know the answer, I'll call Sean and ask him what the answer is. But so for everybody who's still there, which is a good number, thank you very much for joining us. But you can certainly reach out to me with any questions. And Sean, truly, this was fantastic. A lot of information there. If parents are kind of questioning, well, what did Sean say about this? How did that go? We're recording this in about 4 or 5 days because it takes a little bit to download and then upload. We'll get it on the link on our website so people can go back and review. Yeah, Sean, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. If there's anything else that we should know specifically about St. Cloud State, please throw it out there. Do you guys have any ID camps coming up?
We will. We'll have one this spring. Our dome comes down April 11th. I would encourage every guy to get out and watch college soccer, or if not in the summer, go watch Minneapolis City, go watch St. Croix, go watch Joy Athletic, go watch Duluth when they come to town, go watch, I think Blackhawks have started a UPSL team now. Go and watch soccer and have an idea so that you're informed, right?
Yeah.
In fact, almost all those clubs, MPSL, UPSL, now live stream their games, right?
Yeah.
There's really no excuse not to watch soccer. And then this weekend, this is my test, my final test for guys. If there's always a 6:30 Premier League game, right, on Peacock or USA Network. I always say to my guys, if it's Brentford, Bournemouth at 6:30, maybe you're not getting up, right? I get it.
Yeah.
But if Man U plays Man City at 6:30 and you didn't get up,
Yeah.
you don't
You missed
really
an
care.
opportunity.
You don't really care. And I say that with my guys. There's just too much on TV, and you're going to only get better watching good soccer. So do it.
100% agree.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Yeah, and truly appreciate it. Thank you. I love the fact that we have a Division II school in Minnesota, a Division I school now. We've had fabulous Division III soccer and have for a long time. Gustavus went to the NCAAs last year. I think St. Olaf did also. I think actually Gustavus eliminated St. Olaf and Eau Claire.
Yeah. And I think Eau Claire was in too. Yeah, with three sort of what I call three Minnesota teams, greater Minnesota
Midwest,
teams.
real close
fantastic.
Midwest. Yeah. So yeah, it's you're right about the opportunities, especially local, but there's a lot of competition out there and it takes a lot of hard work. So
Indeed.
Appreciate all the information you've shared with us tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Take care. Have a great week and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.